At the start of the video, a father named Brian is seen joyfully playing with his son in their backyard. However, the serene atmosphere quickly turned chaotic when two cars filled with gangsters engaged in a shootout. Brian immediately attempted to shield his son, but tragically, the boy was struck by a stray bullet and lost his life. Devastated and unable to accept this loss, Brian embarked on a mission to chase down the gangsters and bring them to justice. Once one of the bandits' cars flipped over, only a single group was left standing. Brian picked up a metal rod from a trash can, only to find himself face to face with the gang leader, Gonzalez, who emerged from the car holding a gun. Rather than finding justice for his son's death, Brian experienced agony when Gonzalez shot him directly in the throat. The event swiftly spread into local media outlets and was thoroughly investigated by the police. Meanwhile, Brian survived after surgery and 4 months of treatment in the hospital. He finally woke up, with his wife faithfully watching by his bedside. Despite his weakness, Brian wanted to get up as soon as possible and take revenge for the death of his beloved son, even though he could barely walk and had lost his speech forever due to his gunshot wounds. A few days later, Brian was discharged from the hospital. On his way home, he saw all the people on the street as enemies who must be killed, as if everyone was to blame for his son's death. Upon returning home, his father's heart shattered as he faced the reality that his little boy was gone. The joyful days they shared were lost forever. Brian was devastated and struggled to accept the loss of his cherished son. As the days went by, Brian increasingly spent his time in the garage, drinking. His relationship with his wife worsened significantly, and their face-to-face interactions became infrequent. This situation had a profound effect on their marriage and Brian's entire life. While sitting in the backyard, Brian reminisced about the tragic day when his son was killed by a muddy bullet. The pain remained, so rather than doing nothing, Brian, who was indifferent to his own life, was driven by a desire for revenge. He initiated his plan by visiting the police station to gather information on the perpetrators' identities. After obtaining details on Gonzalez and his crew, Brian posted their photos on a board in his garage. He started intensive training and learned to fight with guns. His goal was to kill anyone on the December 24 board, just before Christmas. He trained hard and bought a used car for revenge. As a skilled mechanic, it wasn't particularly difficult for him to rework the car, enhancing it with various interesting features, ensuring it was ready for any unforeseen situations. Nonetheless, physical training and vehicle modifications alone were not sufficient. Brian also decided to enroll in shooting courses to significantly improve both his skills and confidence. After 3 months, his wife finally gave up and made the decision to return to her parents, since Brian no longer seemed interested in improving their relationship. Brian concentrated only on his revenge plan. His life was utterly destroyed, beyond repair. Avoiding grief, he quickly went to the field to test his car. From a distance, he observed Gonzalez to verify his target, discovering some of Gonzalez's allies, which helped him identify his first target. As execution day neared, Brian finished his last training. After 7 months of intense prep, Brian finally made great progress, achieving everything needed for revenge. One day, Brian decided to shop in the neighborhood where Gonzalez and the gang lived. As he was leaving, a little boy reminded him of his son. Without thinking, Brian hugged the child tightly, feeling a deep longing, unable to move past his beloved son's loss. As he was putting on his groceries, Gonzalez, who turned out to be a figure Lou idolized in the neighborhood, suddenly appeared. Brian's eyes were filled with the thirst for revenge. He wanted to kill Gonzalez right away, but accidentally bumped into Gonzalez's girlfriend as he was about to do so. This person was as devoid of ethics and manners as he deliberately poured ice cream on Brian's face. This further infuriated Brianna and intensified his craving for revenge. The day prior to the execution, Brian initiated his plan. He made his way to the residence of one of Gonzalez's trusted allies, Carlos. Despite Brian's lack of experience in the criminal realm, he was driven by desperation to infiltrate Carlos' home. Regardless of a person's background or experience, when loved ones are harmed or lives are taken from them, an ordinary individual like Brian, who has never engaged in violence, can become incredibly determined to give justice. Brian had Carlos complete a form with questions about his gang's name, accomplices, location, and business type. After Carlos finished, a fierce fight broke out. But Brian's stronger resolve led to his victory. He dragged Carlos' body and left it at the detective's doorstep, along with a letter of confessions. That day, Christmas Eve, Brian prepared. He gathered equipment like bulletproof vests, handmade explosives, and weapons, then visited his son's grave one last time. Brian soon reached Gonzalez's neighborhood and saw two gangsters robbing passers-by. Shortly after the two gangsters completed their task, Brian swiftly turned around and forcefully pressed them both against the wall of the house. After he successfully killed the two gangsters, Brian took the time to cut off their fingers and sent them to Gonzalez. His intention was to make Gonzalez believe that a rival group of gangsters had carried out the action. Brian meticulously planned all of this with the goal of inciting conflict between rival gangster groups. That night, Gonzalez decided to send the majority of his men to launch an attack on the rival gangsters. During the ensuing confusion, a brave policewoman was noticed stepping in, putting her life on the line. Observing the dangerous situation, Brian felt compelled to assist her, skillfully distracting the gangsters with his exceptional driving abilities. Unfortunately, the policewoman was fatally wounded and passed away before she could even be transported to the hospital. At the same time, Brian noticed that one of Gonzalez's men had captured him on video. He swiftly seized the man's phone, but it was too late as the video had already been sent to Gonzalez. Realizing this, Brian decided to record himself shooting one of his own subordinates to provoke Gonzalez even more. Gonzalez also remembered Brianna's face, the woman he believed had died 7 months earlier. Unhappy with the situation, Gonzalez ordered his right-hand man Ruiz to bring Brian's head. But Brian arrived alone to distract them, leading the pursuit to the overpass. Brian cried again, thinking of his son, but he couldn't afford to spare, so he sped up. As Ruiz and his men chased him, Brian hit a dead end where 3 gangsters were making deals. Without fear or retreat, Brian, indifferent to his own life, desperately tried to break through, ignoring the gangsters. Brian even caused Ruiz to crash. During this moment, he managed to hit one of the gangsters that were pursuing him. At the very same time, the detective, who had discovered clues leading to the gangster's location, made a decision to take action by himself, without any assistance from his team. In the meantime, Brian was unwinding when Gonzalez sent out a group message using the phone of one of his men. The message instructed the squad to gather at headquarters. Brian saw a chance to take them all out. He swiftly entered the building, seized a shotgun, and used the leaking tank from his motorcycle to his advantage. While Gonzalez and his girlfriend were dancing, fully immersed in the euphoria brought on by the drugs, Brian was busy taking down every single one of the soldiers below. With that task accomplished, his next challenge was to make his way up the stairs to the floor where Gonzalez was. This was no simple feat, as the path was fraught with danger. He would likely face over a dozen of Gonzalez's men, and the risk of being killed was high. Yet, Brian was unfazed by the threat to his own life. Whether he survived or not, he was determined to take down as many gangsters as he could, those who had wreaked havoc and destroyed the lives of countless individuals. Individuals who do not fear death often find it simpler to act decisively without overthinking. Brian wasted no time and quickly set up a wire trap with explosives to stop anyone from getting into the room where Gonzalez was. Remarkably, Ruiz was still alive and managed to survive the whole ordeal. While they were in the middle of their fight, 3 men loyal to Gonzalez showed up. Ruiz, however, appeared to be an incredibly resilient man who seemed unkillable, even after being shot twice. Consequently, Brian made the decision to employ a different approach, specifically opting for a large caliber machine. It wasn't long before the detective arrived just in time to successfully bring down all of the gangsters. Just as he was on the verge of arresting Brianna, Gonzalez's girlfriend suddenly showed up with her machine gun, which forced both of them to take cover immediately. Brian eventually managed to escape from the girl's left side, even though he really wanted to shoot her in retaliation for the ice cream she had spilled on his face. Brian, however, had a conscience and decided to let her go. But as soon as the girl began to act, Brian was left with no choice but to kill her. Now, it's time for the Gonzalez, the last and only target he has left to eliminate. Being the leader of the gangsters, Gonzalez was quite afraid to appear in public, so Brian had to follow him into his private room. Unfortunately for Brian, he soon found himself in a tough situation when Gonzalez pointed a gun directly at his head. Luckily, the detective managed to shoot Gonzalez in the shoulder from behind, which allowed Brian to slowly fight back, suffocating him until he was out of breath.